after the fact, was brought in to investigate what had happened in this place, and Baker and his panel concluded that this was a blind spot for BP, that safety, worker safety, was a blind spot. That's the word that was used. I think that's startling. And then after that, they were fined the $87 million for continuing to fail to address this.
But BP is also the company that puts food on these people's tables.
Absolutely.
They pay very good salaries. People can make a good living working for BP in this town.
There is no question about that, and that is, by far, this is the place where, from an economic perspective, you would want to work if you lived in Texas City.
Do we know what the environmental impact has been of this gas release yet?
It's very hard to know. We asked experts all over the country, what does it mean to put that much benzene in the air? And it's a known carcinogen. It's nothing you want. It doesn't appear to cause any immediate health effects. But again, if you look at the standard from the state of Texas, which is not a particularly tightly regulated state, 10 pounds is the limit after which you have to report. So I think the state of Texas is pretty clear. This is much, much more than they want to see.
So this is as much a story about BP as it is about regulation.
Yes. I mean, we are, in the company of our colleagues from Frontline, looking at the question of, is this, as Hayward has suggested, is this spill in the Gulf just a sort of one in a million terrible thing that happened to people who were trying their best and otherwise had a pretty good record? And we're in early days on this reporting, but it appears that Baker may have a point not only about Texas City, but about the whole company. Our question is, what is the culture within BP? And in answer to your earlier sort of observation about whistleblowers, we're at propublica.org, and if anybody would like to get in touch with me and my colleagues, we're happy to hear from whistleblowers from BP, because we think there are good people who work for the company who want to come forward.
Does this Texas toxic release have any parallels to the Gulf disaster, in your opinion?
I think it does. I mean, I think it does in this sense. First of all, we start with an incident that BP knows is happening and yet massively undermeasures. Well, that's how the oil spill began. Second of all, we have already seen some early evidence from the congressional investigations that the oil spill in the Gulf resulted from very minor corner cutting. Now, in this case, what we've learned when these documents came out about Texas City is that before the accident, they had really cut corners on safety. They had a $50,000 award for safety for the whole plant that they were giving to workers who had safety. They cut that. They cut $40,000 for safety shoes for the workers. I mean, these are when you think about, again, the sort of amounts of money we're talking about that BP earns, these are piddling sums of money, but they're important because they send a message. How do you communicate to a group of workers what you care about? And I think it's what you cut and what you emphasize. And what they emphasized was production.
BP will say that they have spent $1 billion since 2005 to improve plant safety, that they are changing their culture. How do you respond?
Well, I think that's the test, isn't it? I mean, what BP would say is that after this terrible accident at the refinery, they are changing. And I think one needs to put that to the test in all fairness. I mean, it is possible the company really did have some bad luck in the Gulf. The problem here is that this incident happened at the very same time as the Gulf under many of the same circumstances. So it does give me a lot of pause about whether or not to credit what they're saying. I think the jury is still very much out on this. We don't really know all the facts about the company. You know, we've done other reporting about their work in Alaska, where they've also had problems.
Other companies have had problems, though, as well.
Yes, they have.
Exxon has had problems in this area, as well as, I believe it was Shell had problems. They had it's a $5.8 million Clean Air Act violations.
There is no question that the larger framework for this story is that the pursuit of hydrocarbons is dangerous and dirty and bad for the environment and bad for the workers who are in it, and that it is so dangerous. Having said that, what we are exploring now is the question of whether other companies have similar issues. And it's early in our reporting, but it appears to us at the moment that BP does have some distinguishing factors in this area.
While we're talking about reporting, you are staying on this story, and you've had a photographer down there, and you had an interesting incident where he was taking pictures, a freelance photographer of this refinery, and he was detained by police for a short time, but they wanted to see his pictures. People might say that makes sense. Someone's taking pictures of a refinery in a post-9/11 world. The thing about it that gave me pause was they shared his social security number with BP. In your years as an investigative reporter, does that concern you, and does this freelance photographer have any recourse?
Well, I don't know what recourse he has. I think basically he would like to just get on with his life and continue to shoot photos. You know, one thing worth noting in our modern world, this is almost very quaint asking to see photographers' photos. I mean, if one goes to Google Earth and looks at the refinery, one can get an amazingly detailed sense of where everything is, far, far more than a photographer with a lens, even a telephoto lens, could get from the street.
One bit of housekeeping about this story. What happens next with this Texas City refinery incident?
Well, we are going to continue to pursue this. I do not believe that the explanations we've had are complete. And we would like to understand better how the decisions were made. And given that BP has said we had monitors that were sensitive enough to detect the problem, why did it take them 40 days to detect it?
Is there an investigation happening on the ground there?
Well, the Texas air quality authorities are looking into this, and I think now that we've given it a little bit more sort of national attention, I can only hope that they will do a thorough and very complete investigation.
Stephen Engelberg from ProPublica, thank you so much for sharing your reporting.
My pleasure.
Need to Know contacted BP, and a BP spokesman told us the company followed state regulatory procedures and it issued a statement. Here's a part of it. New analytical equipment has enabled us to better understand the unit's emissions when the compressor is down, and a review is underway of procedures related to operating with a compressor outage on that unit.